Hi everyone, welcome back to a tactics video. This time reviewing the Q2 2025 balanced data slate alongside the point changes and also some rule changes that affect all of the armies in 40k to balance out in the current meta. So just like the previous reviews I've done of this type of thing, I always look at the win rates according to Warhammer and also 40kstats.com. Look at the actual rule changes if there are any for guard, point changes, and then have a wider commentary about the impact on us as a faction. So as always, I like to ground myself in where is the faction performing, and as always I use two sources, which is 40kstats.goonhammer, and the key thing here is this is using the Tabletop Battles app, a fantastic app if you're playing 40k. So every single person that puts a game into this app is feeding into these scores. Yeah, so it's going to be everything from if you go to a tournament, an RT, or just play casually with your friends around the tabletop. It is affecting this data. Now, as I think about that, just maybe one thing to remember of this is that people could be sort of maybe inflating or deflating this, but I doubt that's actually a thing. But do remember this is not going to be as clean as looking at pure tournament data. So again, this is all types of gameplays by all types of different people going into this data set. So I filtered it for the 31st of March until the most recent cut, which is obviously the current date. And you can see as you filter by win rates, top of the pack is Imperial Knights, Death Guard, Emperor's Children, having a really good start with their new codex, Demons, Chaos Knights, Custodes, Death Watch, GSC, Necrons, etc., etc. Now, where Guard are, and if you've been following the meta, is quite a bit of a drop. So we now are sitting a 45% win rate, which actually is very low as far as the faction is concerned. Now, do remember, 45% win rate actually is not too bad. If you've been playing 40k for as long as I've now, since back in Debate Edition, certainly there were at some points in time factions that were doing way worse than 45%, and other factions doing way better than 56%. 56% is quite high. Likewise for this is getting quite high. But certainly I remember back in 9th, there were some factions sitting at 60% for a long time. So they talk about a Goldilocks zone, 55 to 45. If you're in that, you're broadly pretty balanced. But I think given where 40k overall is, and this is a good thing, is overall the game is quite balanced. So actually if the overall game is quite balanced, if you are at the bottom of it, and this may make sense as I say it, if you're at the bottom of the league table, you probably aren't as strong, naturally, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So I think the overall game is a lot more balanced than previous editions, but even then, it's going to start to feel not unbalanced, but you'll certainly still feel like you don't have as much power going into things. Now, one thing of note, I'm just looking here, is Chaos Space Marines, 44% win rate. That does not feel right because I definitely feel they're a good faction, but this, of course, is all types of games. Now, a good filter to always apply here is also the number of games playing, which shows a popularity of the factions. So if we click like this, you can then see actually Guard is still a very popular faction. So all of you Astra Militarum commanders are all obviously grinding out the games, still a very popular faction, despite the fact that overall the performance from a stats point of view isn't as strong. So this is all games, yeah. This is every single game played going into the tabletop app as at the 31st of March until the recent data cut. Now going to 40kstats.com, and this is a fantastic resource, and this is capturing only tournament data. It's only capturing tournaments with 5 games, not RTs of only 3 games or less, and it's not capturing team tournaments is my understanding. So it's only going to be, GTs, and I think it has to have a minimum of 30 players. It's basically a proper GT is feeding into this data. So here, and you can see when you click the meta tab, it's basically looking at the data, if I scroll down a bit more, from the Emperor's Children Codex. So they're really good at sort of making sure that what you're seeing here is the most up-to-date meta with all the recent rules. So again, you can see Imperial Knights, Death Guard, Emperor's Children, Chaos Demons, and that is consistent what we're seeing earlier in the casual games. Now, as we try and look for Guard, you can see Guard is towards the bottom again. It's not as bad. In the casual data, we'll go back here. You can see in the casual data that Guard is pretty much at the bottom of the pile, but in the competitive tournament scene, it's not the super bottom. It's bottom, but not horribly bottom. And interesting here, you can see, for example, Black Templars, a 39% win rate, which is quite weak in the tournament scene. And what are Black Templars doing? Okay, so 43% win rate in the total scene, if that makes sense. So it basically shows maybe in the casual scene, Black Templars are doing better than in tournaments. Now, I think here, again, likewise, we've got player population, so 6% of players. Let me click on this. Let me see if it can go like that. I don't know if this will reorder it, but it basically saying 6% of the player population is a high representation. Now, I know, having heard around the place, that if you were to take out a couple of the top winning players, because Guard does actually pop, see, there you go, 2 event wins. We do actually win some events. And we do have some players doing basically achieving, getting four wins off the bat. So my understanding is if you take some of the best players in the world out of this data set, the win rate actually plummets significantly. So there's going to be the likes of David Gaylard, Nassine, also a lovely guy called Gustavo based in London. If you take those chaps out of the data set, Guard actually drops. The win rates will drop significantly. Now, I know reflecting on my performance, I had a pretty good run up until about probably a month and a half ago. Then I slid off a cliff and had loads of losses. But I think Guard overall is going to move back to how it probably felt. I'm trying to think when this was. Maybe the beginning of 10th. When a couple of players were picking up the faction doing very well, but the rest of us, including myself, weren't doing as well. Now, let me come back to my thinking with this, because I think it's a good discussion to sort of explore what is a good or powerful faction, and how do you actually define that? Because I know there's been a lot of talk about this the last 18 months about, Guard always have apparently been an S-tier faction, however, the win rates aren't reflective of that. And I think that really needs to be examined, what we mean by that. It's a bit of a joke, but also likewise there's a bit of serious analysis of doing it, but let's talk about that in a second. So let's now go to the actual changes. Now, remember, my assumption is when the rule team at GW go to basically balance out the meta, I'm getting the sense they pretty much just look at tournament data. Now, I do know some of the rule writers attend tournaments, which is great, because obviously they're actually getting a sense what's happening out in the meta in the wild. But as we look at the actual... Well, let's look at the point changes first. Actually, that's probably the good way to do it. Okay, so these are the point changes. Anything in green, they've got cheaper. Anything red, they've got more expensive. So, firstly, Bulgrams are now cheaper. You can get 3 for 100 and 6 for 200, so 10 and 20 points reduction, which is great. Now, the Death Core of Krieg 20-man blob has gone up by 15. So previously, it was basically 130 for 20, now it's 145. So you're paying a tax for taking the bigger blob. Okay, Death Riders, which frankly are pretty terrible, are now as the same price as Rough Riders. Now with this, I don't think you still would ever take Death Riders over Rough Riders. Rough Riders are a fantastic melee output unit, and check out this video here on how to use that unit, which I have one of my patrons help me out with that. But definitely, at least they are cheaper. They're the same price now. Is there value in a reactive move for Guard? Maybe. But have they got any output? The answer is absolutely no. So at least these are cheaper. Yes, we've got Bulgrams cheaper, we've got Death Riders cheaper, we've got Death Core of Krieg more expensive. Okay, Living Rust Battle Tank is the next most expensive. It's now 185, 110, and I'm pretty sure this makes this the second most expensive Limb Rust behind the Demolisher, Limb Rust, and of course the Tank Commander, which is obviously more. So this has gone up by 10. Now the next one, which has gone up, is the Taurox, which has gone up by 10. So this model used to cost I think 55 points. Then went up by 10 in the last balance data. That's now gone up by another 10 to 75 points. So at 75 points, it makes it the same cost as most of the Rhino Space Marine models, be it Chaos Space Marines or Astartes. It's now the same price as a Rhino. Now, does this do as much as a Rhino? You probably argue it does a bit more, because advance and disembark is a very good rule. But let's come into why, and as we look at the changes, we can sort of probably understand why this has been changed. Okay, the other ones which have changed is the Aquilans are now 100 points, which is cool. Previously 110. Do remember, they at one point were 90 points when they were launched. They went to 110. Now they're back down to 100. So, okay, fine. And one which is a bit out of the blue was Ursula now is 85 points. a massive jump from 65 points. And remember, she used to be 55 points. She used to be 55 points. The Codex was launched with 65 points, and now she's gone to 85 points. So this is a big jump for this model. So it used to be, again, 55 is now 85, but she now is quite expensive. Now, as I was speaking about when we're look at the stats, and again, I keep an eye on wider socials and commentary about this type of thing, but it's starting to feel like, and I think a lot of you in the audience out there will have known this, and this is obvious when I say it, is that basically it feels that the rule team is looking pretty much at tournament performance to make decisions about rule changes. Now, you can take that two ways. You can be quite negative about it or be more understanding about it. So I understand that if you play casually, this can feel pretty rough, because we've had a lot of some of the what would feel like good units get more expensive. But on the flip side, what do you expect GW to do? If they don't balance the meta based on tournaments, it's going to go back to the days of maybe, 8th or maybe 7th edition if you're playing that long, where things were just unbalanced for ages and it was horrible to play into. Some armies were just dreadful. But that being said, if Guard overall, if we go back to these stats here, if you were to take out some of the best players for Guard and the win rates plummet, is that indicative of an army that needs to be adjusted? Because this is something I've spoken about in the past, the idea Guard is S tier, was S tier. I'm trying to find a good analogy. It's like, like maybe golf clubs, maybe the best example, or tennis racket, or like a sports car, or a go-kart maybe. Is that just because a pro player who plays tennis, golf, or as a go-kart racer guy or girl can use one model very well and do very well with it, whilst the rest of the people can't, does that make it a very good go-kart, tennis racket, or clubs? That makes any sense whatsoever. So that's the thing. I think actually this probably, for the sake of a couple of players doing very well with the faction, I don't think we needed to be adjusted at all. Because again, to justify what I'm saying is, again, if you take a few players out of this data set, the win rates would plummet. So all the other players who play in tournaments aren't doing very well. However, a couple of key players are propping up the stats. Now, again, I don't know how. I don't think we needed these changes. I always welcome, obviously, everyone welcomes point drops. And there again, you have to always remember that the faction you play, the factions you do play, will basically do this throughout the course of 40k. So I've been playing since 8th edition, back into 8th edition. I played all through the dark ages of early 9th edition when we had like an 8th edition book. It was just horrible. I was still getting to know how to play 40k. And then we've enjoyed the big rise before the Codex, and it's been quite good. Obviously, we had Bridgehead Strike come down. It was a very good Grotmist attachment. That was very powerful. So this is the reality, is that if you play a faction long enough, you're going to experience the highs and the lows. I do think Guard is going to slip into a bit of a lows period, because probably, I'm guessing some of the better players will leave the faction, pick up the new better factions, and that's what they do because they're very competitively focused. But the rest of us who either don't play enough to get enough practice, aren't naturally that good, including me, will probably maybe find it a bit tougher because, again, I use Leman Russ Battle Tank. I think it's a really good unit. Full rerolls on objectives is a fantastic way to clear objectives. Taurox is, again, a very good unit. And, again, you have to remember that these two units were being used by the best list. They're popping up everywhere. The Taurox, again, is fantastic to dump out some Kazkin and to apply loads of damage. And obviously in Hammer of the Emperor, the tank detachment, it's a very fantastic combination. Drive it through terrain, drop the boys out, do a load of damage, and then they die for the Emperor. Again, I don't know if Ursula needs to be 85 points. This I think it's probably too much. She gives out 3 orders. She gives you -1 CP on a stratagem, which is good. But then now, do you just go back to Lord Solar? So, at almost half, you're getting basically the same thing. Well, you're getting 3 orders, and we'll go to one of the rule changes in a second. You're getting 3 orders. You can redeploy units. He's loads more tanky. Actually does damage himself. And, of course, he gives you 2 CP in your command phase, not 1. And Ursula can only give you the -1 CP cost to regiment units within 12. So she's a lot more restricted. So I think Ursula now is going to be a non-meta choice. And Lord Solar probably is going to come back. Again, that all being said, at least we've had some reductions. Yeah, so if we just had Ursula, Taurox, Death Core of Krieg, 20-man blob, and the most battle tank go up, it'd feel quite nasty. But we do have some options now. I think, 3 Bolgrams at 100 points feels pretty good now. They're not, you can't order them. They're basically on the data sheet. They're an incredibly good roadblock, as you all know. So they actually feel pretty well costed. And then Tempestus Aquilons, 6-inch Deep Strike is not what it used to be, like 3-inch Deep Strike, which was wild. But 6-inch Deep Strike definitely is good, and I kind of think that, weirdly, Aquilons and Bolgrams serve a very similar purpose. They're basically fundamentally roadblocks, or albeit these are a lot more effective to do it. They can't, obviously, Deep Strike versus Aquilons can Deep Strike and be quite annoying. But at least if you are a Scion connoisseur, you do have the option here because, 10-man Scion is quite expensive, 140. So look, from this, like I've read Goonhammer's perspective on this, they rate Guard as a slight loser. That definitely feels like it is the case, yeah, because everyone knows battle tanks, the 20-man brick of Death Core dudes, and Ursula and a Taurox were appearing in my list. And they were options I was taking, not because the best players were using them, but because I honestly knew they were very good units. Yeah, again, Numerous Battle Tank is fantastic. 21 Blob is very good. Ursula's good. And I was only taking 1 Taurox. So give perspective on the impact on me as my latest list concoction went up by 45 points. So is that a massive hammering? I don't know. I do remember a couple of balanced data slates ago. I think I had a list got like 115 points. So it's been a lot worse. Right, so that all being said, now let's look obviously at a rule change. And the only real rule change actually now is our glorious Lord Sol Leontis can now order Titanic units. So he can order all of the Baneblade family. Now, this is great. But do remember, in the index, he originally could order everything already. So, it's so funny how it just comes and goes. But, remember, he used to be able to order every single unit in the Codex, which I think makes sense because he is the Lord Solar. He's the biggest and baddest dude. He's the total boss man. But now at least you can have Baneblades moving 13 or 12 inches. You can have them hitting on 3s. You can make them OC 9, maybe it is. Cool. Now, again, this is great if you're a casual player, you want to take the big old bad boys on the tabletop, but if you're playing a UK TC like I am, being in the UK, it doesn't actually help you because you cannot maneuver this model through terrain at all. So unless you take Hammer of the Emperor and you can pay CP to make it drive around things, this is a bit of an academic edition. And remember, this isn't new news. This is basically old news that's come back. But this is great. I mean, again, to have Ursula get more expensive, 65 to 85. Lord Solar stays the same, but now can order Titanic. At least we're getting stuff, yeah. Because again, if this wasn't changed at all, it would feel quite sharp, quite a bit of a nerf if we had basically no adjustments to Lord Solar. So I'm going to keep this one actually quite quick because, I think my perspective on this is that we are a slight loser in this one. And going off the statistics, the win rates based both in the competitive scene and the total scene of all games mapped into this data, is we're not a faction that is killing it. And I do fundamentally believe that the decision to change these units cost here, the ones that went up at least, is based purely on the tournament scene. And again, I know a lot of you in the comments before have said this, but I think this definitely has come true here. But again, at least they've made 3 units cheaper. Again, I think we have to always be quite realistic what we can expect. I think something I've always discussed with my other 40k battle brothers is that I think we often overestimate the size of the rule team at GW. I think it's a handful of blokes and ladies doing this for a job, is that they can't adjust everything. For example, where is the new horse leader man, Dryer, Lord Dryer, whatever he's called? His rules totally stink. He's not worth 100 points, whoever that bloke is. I can't find him. He should have his rules adjusted. Yeah, there we go, Lord Marshal Dryer. It's a fantastically cool model, but he is not worth 100 points. And I don't know how they identified that Death Riders should be cheaper. Aquilons should be cheaper. Borgrams should be cheaper. I don't know how they identified that. Because I would say, for example, Lord Dry, his rules need to be rewritten or become cheaper because he frankly is just useless, unfortunately, despite the fact he was in the new Codex launch kit and looks fantastic. But that all being said, again, we've got 3 units which have got cheaper, 2 of which probably have actual play. I think Death Riders still fundamentally have little play because they can reactive move, but they basically serve the same purpose as just a squad of jungle fighters or Cadian shock troops because they have limited output and they just stand in the way of things. Aquilons, you probably argue, are similar, but at least they've got a bit of output, particularly in Bridgehead also combined. And Bolgrams are just a great shout. So at least we've had some adjustments other way around. So let's keep it brief. That's about 20 minutes. I'm still relatively positive. Again, I think this is a slight nerf, but I'm still relatively positive. I think Guard still is a good faction that plays good fundamentals. What the new list concoctions will be, I don't know. I mean, I'm actually fiddling around with taking Draxus, Inquisitor Draxus, and 5 Death Watch Kill Team dudes, which you can see nicely on the hobby desk there, being painted up. Is a bit of an option maybe, given they've got a bit of devastating wound output, and obviously Draxus herself has got a fair bit of light level DACA against infantry. So what's your perspective on this? What do you think about the changes, both the rule change and also the point changes? And then wider meta. How are you feeling? Again, I've read different perspectives, and from what I understand, it sounds like Death Guard are just going to blow the doors off the meta for the next 3 months. Whilst Emperor Children have been adjusted, Eldari got adjusted, but I think Death Guard are going to be the stinky boys that just blow the meta out of the poo pile for a while. But yeah, what's your perspective on this? Let's keep it somewhat positive, as always. But let me know what you think. So, if you enjoy this content, want to support me, you can do so by like, comment, or by subscribing. Joining my Patreon platoon, you get a miniature assigned to you at the end of each video's roll call, or simply sharing the video, watching with some of your friends. I've also had some custom dice produced, which I've got them done here. Some really nice dice done by the Dice Baron in America. And if you check the description below, there's details on how to get in touch with me, how to buy those. I really appreciate all the support that my subscribers and patrons give me, and also channel members. So get your bayonet sharp, blades gun oiled. Faith for the Emperor strong. Patreon platoon, sound off. Tank Commander Glenn, Tank Commander Mitchell, Tank Commander Watchdog Van Etten, Lieutenant Burke Nielsen, Lieutenant Smith, Colour Sergeant DuPont, Sergeants Adal, Scott, the Colonel Merrill, Veterans Gibson, Hall, Lundeen, Guardsman Beard, Coquelin, Easingwood, Hills, Lyons, Malik, Nitton, Medicae Rolfe, Tontkin, Conscripts England, Evangun, Goodwin, Honorary Members Bolgram King, Psyker Smith, Cyan Gaylard, Aquilon Nassim.